Hi. So I got into audio fairly recently, and I'm loving it. I found this really great volunteer site called LibriVox.org, and that's where I've been submitting my audio files, and it's been really fun. But I am new to audio, and it's been less than a year, and it's just been a really hard struggle because it's a huge learning curve. And this is despite, after reading and looking up all the free resources and literature that LibriVox did have, which was actually great. It's nice that they really had that for us to use, as well as some of the videos that were included. But even after all that, it was still not enough. It was just so mind-boggling to see how complicated it seemed to have a file, an audio file, passable to be uploaded into LibriVox. So this is why I felt compelled to make this video. Because after countless hours, experimentations, struggles, pain, tears, sweat and tears, sweat and tears, I have come to a point where I now would like to share the three main edits that I do to my audio files now in order to get them to pass into LibriVox. And I'm hoping that it might help some of you. Now, these three edits work for me in my setup, my situation, and of course, I can't guarantee that it would work for yours 100%. However, I think that if you understand the concept behind the three edits that I'm going to hopefully explain properly in this video, maybe based on the understanding that underlies these edits, you can then adjust it according to your situation. All right, so let's take a look. I have Audacity already open. I'm on version 3.2.5, which is the latest, I think. And I'm actually going to record something from my blog. Hi, I'm Rel, by the way. And my blog is radiorel22.blogspot.com. All right, let's record. The LibriVox.org vibes are truly great. How would I summarize my experience so far as a volunteer reader for LibriVox.org? I guess in 2 words, pretty cool. So what's LibriVox.org all about? Well, I think of it as an audio library of public domain works read by voices of all races, creeds, genders, ages, the Voxes. So how would I characterize or rate it? Well, here are the top 5 features I think that make it just dandy. Alright, so I'm obviously not going to record the whole thing because we're just pretending. Making this file big so you can actually watch this file shrink and grow as we go through the process of the 3 steps. But I am going to obviously go and show you the pre-step, right? The step that we all do that I don't count as part of my 3 edit, which is the noise reduction, because that's a given. Like, we all do that. So I don't count that as part of the 3 main edits that I was going to show you, but I'll do it right after this. So I'll just show you the noise reduction first to get us prepared for the 3 main edits. So I highlight the initial 3 seconds. I intentionally don't talk so that I can record the ambient noise in my space. I go to Effect, I go to Noise Reduction, I make sure that it's at the right, which is the maximum amount that I can reduce at 48 dBs. I get the noise profile, which is essentially setting the standard of the ambient noise I want to apply in reducing to my whole file. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to Control A to select the whole file because I want to now reduce or apply the reduction on my whole file. Control R to reduce. And so you'll see things disappear, right? Which is good. It did its job. And I'm also assuming, obviously, I've already made all the other edits, that normally would happen at this point prior to reduction of the noise, which is, the common edits, errors and spaces of breaths and stuff. So that I can now show you up to this point, right? What are the 3 main edits I do to my file after the noise reduction, like after all the other preconditions of the other, edits you normally would do. Okay, select the whole file or Control A. I'm going to go to Effect, and my first step, the first main edit I do on my audio file is I go to Limiter, number 1. The preset -10 is actually good for me. I have tested this painfully, and it is also good. So I'm going to press Enter. And you might have noticed, obviously, that something like it shrunk. And actually what Limiter just did was it shaved off into my file -10 dBs on the top and the bottom. And what that is basically doing is trimming. It's trimming as a even line across the file of any loud sounds that exceed, that minus 10B line. And so that's great because by this trimming action, it actually is preparing us for the second step that I'm going to show you now. My second step, having not deselected my file, so if you have to reselect your file again, do that. And then my second step is I'm going to go to normalize, which is right under noise reduction. So my second step is normalize. The preset of minus 6 dB is fine. I also tested this, which is funny because it implies that all these presets were probably already checked by someone painstakingly as well. And it works for me too, so it's okay. So I'm going to press enter. And you'll notice that the file bumps up, which is fine, because what normalize just did is it took the soft parts of my file and it grew them along with the loud parts until the loud parts hit minus 6 dB. Then it stops growing. Or in other words, because the preset was at minus 6 dB, it basically said shave off or also reduce or stop at minus 6 dB once it grows to that level. And actually what that ends up doing is it optimizes my soft parts so that it's more equal to the loud parts. And that's across the board, right? Which is great. And so that helps to kind of make, the file sound overall, like in between all the soft parts, like kind of more optimized and closer to the loud parts. Okay, the third step, right? And counterintuitively, this is after much research, I discovered that actually my third step is the first step again. I'm going to shave it again. So I'm going to go to limiter again, and minus 10 is fine. I'm going to say okay. And you'll definitely see that now, right? The real shave, right? Really obvious. And that basically shaved off anything that grew too much during the normalize feature effect, because obviously I wanted to optimize all the soft parts, but obviously at the more loudest parts they might be uneven. So now this limiter at the end, which is a even trim of minus 10 dB, it actually is like a guardrail, and it's good because it actually makes it not so jarring for the listener, so that if ever it hits like a high area, like it doesn't jolt you in your earphones, it just drops off. And if you test the experiment on your own, you'll realize that when you listen to the file, it's not like the words get cut off or anything like that. It's still like, understood, and, it's still audible and all that stuff. It's just that if it gets really loud, like up to that line of minus 10 dB, the volume drops out so that it's not uncomfortable. But otherwise, the listening, the words, everything's still fine. And those are the three steps. Really easy, right? But I am going to show you the next step that I do before I load up to LibriVox, and this next step is a game changer for me. I don't count this game-changing effect or this step as part of the three main edits, because the game-changing step I take is essential. It is like a given. I must do it, just like I must do the noise reduction. And these three steps we just went through are essentially optional, right? These are optional edits. So I'm going to show you the next step now. So from here, and before I had recorded, right, I'd made sure that I was already preset to the parameters that LibriVox needs, the mono track, the 4400 hertz, the 16-bit, right? That's all good, so that at this step when I export, which is what I'm doing next, I'm exporting an MP3 file so that I can test the file. And I'm going to skip this page by pressing enter. I'm testing the volume of the file, which is so critical because you need to have the right volume in order to pass LibriVox. And so this next app that I'm going to show you, which through my own research I found is a free app. It's called MP3 Gain. You could probably find it online. That's how I found it. And this is a game-changing one, because this essentially tells me the volume at which my file landed after all my edits, right? I need to know. And Audacity, for some reason, I couldn't find anywhere where it shows you where my file size lands, right? The volume size. Okay, I'm grabbing this. And then I am highlighting, then I'm doing the track analysis. All right. And you can see that it also is using the guide. It says target normal volume 89 dB, which is actually the same target or standard that LibriVox follows. So this is perfect. MP3 Gain is actually measuring my file against that same standard. And it's basically telling me that my volume landed at 88.8. Which is nice, right? Because that means I'm really close. And you'll see in this little column track gain that it says 0.0. It's actually telling me that I don't really need to do anything. Probably I assume it means that it's imperceptible, like how close it is. Like if I were to change it to 89, it probably won't be perceptible by the human ear. That's what I guess. But I'm a perfectionist. I am going to make it 89, and I will show you how. And I also will share with you, based on my experience with using MP3 gain, is that anything that actually says in this column track gain, like even if it had a number in there, 3, whatever it is, if it's at 3.1, 2.5, 1.6, whatever number actually says in track gain, if you were actually to follow it, it turns out that it's kind of overkill in either direction. Either it gets too loud or too soft if I follow what it actually gives me in track gain. So I actually instead don't follow that. I actually just do math. I just say, what does 89 minus the volume of my file equal to? And so 89 minus 88.8 is obviously 0.2. which would get me to 89. And I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to go back to Audacity into my file. My thing is already, my whole file is already selected. I didn't deselect it. So now I'm going to go back to Effect, and this time I'm going to go all the way to the top, and I'm going to select Amplify. And this, whatever's in the box, actually shows you the maximum that you could amplify this file to, which we don't want. I want 0.2, because that's what we determined. Now, had my file been too loud, like louder than the 89, then I'd put a minus here. But not this time. Obviously, I need to increase it. I need to amplify it. Okay, enter. And if you notice, there was a subtle, perceptible sort of like bump up, which is great. And that's what I look for, actually, because I know my file, based on the MP3 gain test, that it was softer. So I need it to grow. I need it to bump up. I need it to increase in volume. So now I need to test it again. I need to make sure that that actually worked to my expectations. Export again, TTT, and I'll just like a random file name, skip this page, press enter, go back to the MP3, clear the file so I can test the new one. TTT, drag it in, right, highlight, and track analysis. And voila, you notice that it says 89, like on the dot, which is exactly what I wanted. So this shows that this file is correct for volume. But literally the next step that I do right before loading it into LibriVox, I'll show you as well, is now I will export it officially, like, like properly with like the proper title. So let's just pretend, right, lowercase underscore with a section number, right, pretending. And then here, like, I don't skip this labeling because I do think, it's proper to, make a good label. Post radio realm, right, 01, 223, and then I just, all right, so press OK. And then literally what I do right before loading is I follow LibriVox's requested checker. They have their own checker that they want you to run your file in so that it passes. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to take that demo file that I just named, drag it into there. And as you'll see, it zipped right through and it says status passed. And it says this file has passed the chosen validation tests, which is great because that just tells me that, because it would tell you if it's not loud enough or soft enough, but it doesn't give you like the details in terms of like specific dBs, which is what the MP3 gain told me. And that's why I couldn't use the checker to tell me that either, right? So yeah, but this has the general, test that just says if it's good or bad and if it passes or fails. It'll say fail if I failed, and it'll sort of give me a general gist of like what I failed on. And it'll test for things like, if you used capital letters instead of lowercase, if you didn't use underscore, which are all part of like the general parameters of LibriVox. So this is great. So this literally means that I will take this file, LibriVox demo _01 MP3 file, and I can then upload it directly into LibriVox, and I'm done, right? And that's it. So just to recap, the 3 main edits that I made to my file in order to get it ready for LibriVox, right, outside of the preconditions, outside of the pre-steps like noise reduction and the regular editing that you would normally do, the 3 main edits were, right, limiter, normalize, and then limiter. 1, 2, 3. And the limiter was the -10 dB, the preset. The normalize was the -6 dB preset. And then I trimmed it again at the end, limiter again at -10 dB. Then I tested my file as an MP3 in MP3 gain to check the volume and fix that if I need to. And then after that, I run it through the LibriVox's requested checker. And that is it. So I hope this helps. Thanks, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon.